why am I not happy all the time? What is something that I can do to work on my sense of fulfillment and to work on my sense of comfort with my life and connection and love, like you talked about?
Problem in society right now is that all or nothing, or here's the thing that's going to, fix you.
From our first conversation in Toronto, I knew that I needed to have Dr. Marc Kielburger on this podcast. Today, he joined us virtually from Latin America to talk about feelings of fulfillment and happiness and what it means to live our own legacies, even at a young age. This is Lived Words with Yuvan Rasiah. So, Marc, I want to start with a very simple question. You talk a lot about the idea of happiness and fulfillment in life. I really want to understand, why am I not happy all the time?
That's a great question. There's a significant difference between two very common terms that we think are the same, but they're actually quite different. And you said it very eloquently in your question. One is happiness and one is fulfillment.
Right.
One thinks that they're interchangeable. In reality, they're not. Happiness is an emotion. I can be happy 1 minute and I can be not happy or sad or frustrated or something else the next minute. And happiness comes and goes. And happiness, from a brain perspective, often works on something called the dopamine pathways. And so your dopamine levels go up when you're happy and tend to go down when you're unhappy. And that's kind of what happiness is. Whereas fulfillment is not an emotion.
Right.
Fulfillment is more of a state of being. It's a state of seeing the world, or being, in my mind, in unison with the world. It's more of a state of a philosophical understanding of kind of your role in the world. So you can be fulfilled and happy, and you can be fulfilled and unhappy as
Mm.
well. So let's say, for example, I unfortunately recently lost my father. My father passed away about 3 months ago. And I was by his bedside and saying to him how much I love him. I was very fulfilled at that moment. I was very fulfilled, but I
Right.
was equally unhappy that I was not able to be with him, on an ongoing basis because he was about to pass away. And so happiness, again, is an emotion. Fulfillment is a state of being. And so many people are chasing the emotion of happiness, but happiness comes and goes, and
Right.
is often dictated, unfortunately, by external realities in people's minds. It's often dictated by external validation, typically in people's minds, which is a separate part of a larger conversation. Whereas
Right.
fulfillment is very much dictated by your own emotions, by your own state of being, by your own love for yourself, and by your own ability to center yourself.
Right. And so I was once told that happiness is something that is created. Like, we create happiness. We aren't given happiness. Do you think about that in the same way in terms of fulfillment? Is fulfillment something that we create for ourselves, or does it just kind of happen? How does one become fulfilled?
I love that question. How does one become fulfilled? One becomes fulfilled, it's through a nurturing process to nurture fulfillment.
Right.
So what are some things that can actually create fulfillment and nurture fulfillment? Well, one is, the most powerful force that creates fulfillment is love. And I think love is one of the most remarkable forces in the universe. Dr. King once said, love is the most powerful force in the universe, to give you a sense of context. And so if you have
Absolutely.
love in your heart, you will be likely fulfilled. If you have love for yourself, you'll likely be fulfilled. If you have love for others, you'll be likely fulfilled. If you have love for your place in the universe and the connectivity of the universe, you'll be likely fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so fulfillment is actually often through love. Now, how do you bring that love into your heart for yourself, others, and the world? Well, that can be done through a bunch of things. One great thing is through gratitude and practicing gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most remarkable free biohacks that one can ever do to help keep one grounded and one focused and one centered into
Right.
bringing fulfillment to one's life. Finding meaning. When bad things, quote unquote, happen that make you unhappy, looking at these situations that, quote unquote, make you unhappy, instead of making them unhappy situations, well, what is the meaning of those situations that gives you a sense of love, understanding, compassion, and fulfillment, or a sense of gratitude?
Right.
So, that's something else that can do that. Spending time in nature, seeing the interconnectivity of everything, spending time with loved ones, having those quiet moments, having opportunities to, like, just be together with people that actually give you energy as opposed to deplete energy from you, that can make you fulfilled too.
Right.
Fulfillment is done through a practice, and you literally have to practice fulfillment to become fulfilled. Whereas happiness, again, tends to be an emotion. Like, again, you could be happy one minute, sad one moment. I could say something to you right now and that makes you happy, but 15 seconds from now, I could say something to you that's going to make you sad and unhappy. And in
Right.
this case, happiness is being dictated by my interrelationship with you as opposed to fulfillment, which is your interrelationship with yourself.
Right. Do you ever feel like it's almost cyclical in the sense that when you feel a sense of unfulfillment, it becomes harder to like actually do the things to become fulfilled because you're kind of in that pit? 'Cause sometimes I feel like um if I'm unhappy or if I feel like everything I'm doing is wrong or it's some sort of like negative emotion, it can be so strong that it's like I can't get out. You know what I mean? When to the point where it's like you can't I feel like I can't go out and actually do the things that I know would make me happy or would make me feel fulfilled because I'm so stuck in the unfulfillment. Is that something you've
Well,
experienced?
so of course, I mean, look, we've all had our challenges and we've all gone through our various different journeys. And of course, until I understood the difference between happiness and fulfillment, that was part of it. But let me ask you this question. What truly makes you fulfilled?
Um, I think spending time with my family. I think like having conversations that um are interesting to me. I think talking about like even the conversations like this where we're talking about things that are important in my mind to um my learning to people's learning who are listening to this or are watching this. That I think gives me a sense of purpose and I feel like I'm like doing something useful. But it's hard because it's like
Yes.
it's not always something you can do like all the time.
I understood. Okay. So you've said two things
Right.
that's really important: spending time with your family and doing things that give you purpose. What else makes you fulfilled?
Right. I think I really like to play basketball, and that's been a big thing for me that I feel um like I've done something kind of right.
Cool.
But I
And,
guess
and,
I somewhat I
and what,
somewhat am
but what about basketball? Not just the actual sport of
yeah.
basketball, but why does basketball make you fulfilled? Like, what about basketball makes you fulfilled?
I think being part of a team has been a big thing for me. Working with
Love that.
people has been a big thing for me. In my own sense of fulfillment, for
Great.
sure. What makes you
Absolutely.
fulfilled?
And what makes me fulfilled? There's three, four things that make me fulfilled. Um, that I look at and think about on a regular basis. Love and the concept of love, bringing love into my heart, makes me fulfilled. Connectivity and connection make me fulfilled, realizing I'm connected to a larger world than myself. My family makes me fulfilled. I love my family. Really, really love my family. And my health and being focused on my health makes me fulfilled. And all those things actually are interrelationships to each other because love of family, love of self through health, connection to my family, connection to myself through health, connection to the sense of the spiritual underpinnings of the universe through love. Like, they're almost all the same thing, albeit articulated in different ways, but they're at the minimum, they're all interrelated. So that always makes me
Right.
fulfilled. But I wanted to say thank you for mentioning, your time with your family, things that gives you purpose in your team, and spending time as a team. And if you can keep that in your heart as your guide or as your anchor or as your your internal GPS. You don't have to be doing those things all the time, but you know that if you're in a difficult state and you're quote unquote unhappy or something makes you unhappy, you can shift your emotion to go back to fulfillment by focusing back on the things that actually fulfill you. And
Hmm.
so that's the good news. When people are only focused on happiness, their emotions rule them. I'm going to say that again. When people are focused on that happiness, their emotions rule them. And often it's the external people who impact them, whose emotions impact them. And
Yeah.
so therefore you're out of control because everything else is basically you're reacting to yourself, you're reacting to others, you're reacting to the person who cut you off at the red light, you're reacting to the teacher who yelled at you, you're reacting to your boss who's an a-hole, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay?
Absolutely.
That is a hell of a hard way to go through life.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're working on fulfillment, you go back and yes, you've had a stressful day and you've had a difficult situation with your boss, but at the end of the day, you're like, you know what? There's 7.8 billion people in the world, whatever the number is right now. I don't think anybody really knows the right number, but there's a lot of people. But the point being is this person is one of billions, and I know myself.
Right.
I'm going to go back and spend some time with my team playing basketball because that's actually what grounds me.
Right.
I'm going to be responsible for my own emotions and my own responsibility because I know I really love myself. And that's the most important relationship I have.
Right.
And so, distancing this and putting the happiness into perspective, I'm going to say that again, putting the happiness into perspective through fulfillment.
Hmm. How do you like? I think the concept of fulfillment is it sounds great, but
Yes.
how do I know when I am feeling fulfilled? Like, what does it feel like to be fulfilled?
Mm. You feel centered, you feel grounded, you feel calm, you feel purposeful, you feel connected, and you feel love.
Mm.
Those are things it's and again, I see fulfillment, my words, not anybody else's at least, as a state of being. It's just a state of just seeing the world. Like I am a fulfilled person. And you kind of you know it when you see it. You
Right.
know it when you know it.
Absolutely.
Whereas 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I was focused on happiness. And happiness was one moment I was happy, one moment I was sad, one moment I was angry, one moment I was excited, one moment I was this, one moment I was that. And it was like I was like a stock ticket, up and down and up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, more of an even keel flat line. And I can assure you, you know it when you know it. And my ask to readers is two questions. Are they really happy? And are they fulfilled? Because I think a lot of people put on a veneer of happiness and they know they're not happy.
Yeah.
They think they're happy, but deep down inside, they're really not happy.
Right.
Or they put on their Instagram, reels or whatever it is, like, look how happy I am, look how great my life is. And they put on the filters, and it's to show everybody else the veneer of happiness when in reality, there's a lot going on inside that's making them unhappy.
Right.
It's a different way of seeing the world.
Right. Right. So let's talk about if we can. You mentioned 4.5 years ago, right? About 2020. The world is in a global pandemic. We're all kind of shut down in quarantine. And at that time, you, I think, by all means, in terms of resume, have been incredibly successful. You're a Harvard grad, you're Oxford grad, you're a Rhodes Scholar, you've worked with like Oprah and Sir Richard Branson. And it sounds like you have all the things that you need. And yet you're telling me that you were focused on happiness and not on fulfillment. So you didn't feel fulfilled in your life. Is that fair?
And not
Why?
Yeah, not only did it not feel fulfilled in my life, I was chasing the wrong outcome and I crashed. And there's
Mm,
a whole bunch of reasons for that, but I'm gonna talk about the implication of the crash here just for a moment to answer your question specifically. I
absolutely.
was mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, 50 pounds more overweight than I am now. So 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And now I'm not overweight, but before then I was pre-diabetic, absolutely miserable, not sleeping, not a bad father, but not a good father, not a bad husband, not a good husband.
Mm,
And I wasn't showing up. I wasn't present. I was falling asleep while driving. I had this thing that doctors laughed at me called adrenal fatigue when I explained what this was. Conventional doctors didn't know what I was talking about until I found
yeah.
some doctors who did understand the importance of what I was explaining. Um, and I literally went to the doctor saying I couldn't sleep, and then they gave me a prescription for sleeping pills.
Yeah.
And then I just ended up taking way too many sleeping pills. Like, it was a disaster, like literally a disaster. And you were very kind in all your remarks in terms of my resume. And yes, I do have a lot of experience in that resume, but I couldn't figure this out. Like here, I've
Yeah.
gone to some of the best schools. I've got a great group of friends and a great network, and I was blind. I didn't. Nobody told me about all these things growing up. Nobody told me about all these issues, what happens when you create a burnout. Like there's no playbook to this. And I was burnt out. I was literally burnt out. I was exhausted. I was depressed. And I had hit rock bottom. And in those
Right.
cases, it's either that situation breaks you or it breaks you open. And so thankfully the latter happened, and I had to question everything. I had to kind of like rebuild my life. I had to rebuild what was important to me. I had to reestablish so many things. I had to shed a ton of trauma. I had to get my health back into place. And I did this through something called the longevity trifecta, which I'd love to talk about if you would like to share
Absolutely.
a little bit later. But the point being is, it took me a while to figure out how to do this. And this is why I'm so appreciative of this platform that you have and this experience that you're providing, because more people need to understand that, if you're going through a really difficult time, you can use that as a way to actually use that as a springboard for your life, as opposed to something that's going to help, unfortunately, in many cases, sink you. So, like, actually growing from trauma, there's this term called post traumatic stress that we all know,
Hmm.
or PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, we all know. There's equally a term that's little known called post-traumatic growth, PGT. And so if you go through a very stressful time, how do you use that very significant time or trauma to actually help you grow as opposed to help create a hindrance for you?
Right. Right. And you feel like you went through post-traumatic growth.
I did.
How does someone who is in that moment where um, you have adrenal fatigue, you're pre-diabetic, you're mentally exhausted, you're physically exhausted. How do you, instead of going into that post-traumatic stress, you go into post-traumatic growth, you're able to improve out of that. I think that there's this idea that you know, um, trauma makes us stronger and we're able to grow from it. And I think a lot of people talk about it as a concept, but it's often harder in practice than I think we make it seem, right? It's the idea that um, in a hard moment, like, yeah, just push through and you'll be great. Well, it's not so simple always. How were you able to really get through that pain and that struggle that you were in, and find your way to growth?
It's a great question, and there was no one moment. There was no, magical situation whereby the sky opened up with the sun ray coming down, pulling up from the heavens. Like, it didn't that didn't happen. Like,
Right.
I wish I could point to the one thing. There were some very profound moments, but some significant things that did happen. But it was a lot of things. And let's me deal with a couple parts of the question. First is, there is this unfortunate understanding, especially among men, that trauma makes you stronger. Suck it up, shove it down, be tough. You're a guy. Don't let your emotions come out, all this BS. And in reality, this is why I think men's mental health is such a major issue facing the United States and Canada today and much part of the world. This is why,
Right.
most men don't have, a significant number of friends or even have a best friend in the world now. Most men, if you look at the statistics, are lonely. This is why, there's so many issues of aggression and pain and suffering and violence that's usually perpetuated by men, not women. Not always, but predominantly men. Is
Right.
because of this concept that trauma makes us stronger, and we should just embrace it and shove it down our nervous system, and it will all be fine. And then we'll have a couple drinks and we'll just numb ourselves and just hang out with the boys, and that's what we call, male bonding. And that's
Yeah.
that's one way of looking at it. It's not the way I see the world. How I see the world is, trauma is an opportunity to grow if we understand what trauma is truly. And trauma is a lot of things. It's a lot of things. But for me, trauma was um, emotional energy that was stuck in my nervous system that needed to find a way to get out. And that trauma, unfortunately, was regulating me as opposed to me regulating the trauma. And I needed to find a
Mm.
way, because the science shows this, that trauma, everything's energy, as we all know. And in this case, when you have a traumatic event, your body protects you, and your body doesn't know how to process what's happening, and basically your brain goes into protection mode and hides these significant overwhelming emotions somewhere in your body, usually in your fascial tissue,
Right.
and it's stored there. And what we need to do is recognize that this energy is stored in our cells, stored at a cellular level, stored at an epigenetic level. And what we need to understand is that we actually have to do things that will help us relieve and take that energy out of our bodies. We need to
Right.
actually release the trauma. And by releasing the trauma, then we can go back into a state where we're more regulated in terms of our nervous system. And when we're more regulated in our nervous system, we can have a better relationship with ourselves, others in the world. So this concept, I know it was only part of your question, this concept that you know, like trauma makes us stronger. Trauma makes us stronger if we recognize what trauma is. How do we address it? How do we actually, let it leave our bodies? How do we learn from it? As opposed to what most people do is shoving it down in our nervous system and trying to show that we're strong and beating our chest. And when in reality, we're just really hurt people and sad and angry and
Right.
feel a lack of love and feel a sense of overwhelm. So that's just kind of point one. Point two of your question is, well, how do you do it? And how did I do it? And how I did it was truly hitting rock bottom. There was a lot of tears, a lot of really hard emotions. My two saviors were my two. I have two lovely children. I'll put them aside here, but my two saviors was my wife. Her name is Roxanne. She's an amazing person. You've met her,
Yep.
and she was there by my side throughout the entire process. And my other love is my 120-pound Bernese mountain dog named Daisy.
Awesome.
And so my dog saved me too. I can't tell you how much I love this dog. I love this dog. She's like my spirit animal.
That's awesome.
And spending time with them and just being there with the help of a lot of people around me, making really small incremental daily choices of the fact that I needed to rebuild my life and I needed to look at my life differently and my priorities differently. And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And there's a lot of different modalities that I used, a lot of different experts I consulted. Some of it was, traditional modern science, and some of it was ancient wisdom. And
Right.
the ancient wisdom piece was as important, if not more important than modern science. And I was working with some of the best scientists.
Right.
And I put all that together and created a plan. And now it's been a journey, and now it's almost been 5 years and I literally am a new person. I
Right.
feel amazing. I have more energy than I did at 18. I am so happy and fulfilled, but my happiness comes from my fulfillment. I just
Mm.
love getting up every day. I love having these conversations. I love doing the work that I do. I love my my family. My ability to contribute. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, we're on this earth for such a finite amount of time. Such a finite amount of time. At the end of the day, what do you want? At the end of the day, you want love, you want contribution, and you want connection. And I have all those things in my life now.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's awesome. So as and just to put it into perspective a little bit, right? Um, as a high school graduate, taking a gap year, right?
Yes.
Um, a lot of us don't have access to the resources that you did on your
Mhm.
journey, right? You talked about you were able to speak to some of the best medical experts, and the ancient wisdom was more helpful. What is something that I can do at home or in a dorm room, um, where and be able to work on my sense of fulfillment and to work on my sense of comfort with my life and connection and love, like you talked about.
Mhm. So there's two answers to that. One is I'm going to give you the answer to fulfillment, and then two is here's a more integrated answer. On the
Okay.
fulfillment side, there's so many simple things you can do. One is just to be honest with yourself. You're we're all made up of our conscious, i.e., our ego, and our subconscious. And usually it's our conscious and our ego that takes the predominant role in our lives, and our subconscious takes a quiet role. And the subconscious is,
Right.
what we really know in our hearts. It's, who we really are inside before we had to conform to society norms. And so what the objective is to not just have your conscious and your ego here, running the show all the time, is to do what you can to bring the subconscious up to help ensure that your conscious and your subconscious are working together in tandem. So that's the strategy. So to answer your question is on the fulfillment side, or what are some of the things you can do to bring your subconscious up so it has an equal voice or an equal playing field to your consciousness and your ego?
Right.
And that could be things like, doing something you really love. It could be, doing things like art or music, or for you, it might be that basketball. It might be finding one or two really loving, important friends to be able to truly connect with that will know that you have your back and you can have deep conversations. There's
Right.
so many ways that you can do this. Talk therapy, art therapy, spending time in nature, grounding, taking your shoes off and actually being connected to the earth. There's so many things you can do.
I guess you have done the work, right? What does it feel like to be fulfilled?
You feel free.
Hmm. What does that mean?
It means that all of the expectations, for the most part, that the conformity that society gives you and expects of you, the ability to be anybody but yourself is abated. And you
Right.
go from thinking and caring what everybody else thinks to thinking and caring about what you think about yourself. It is very liberating. It's a state of just taking a deep breath, and you have to consult with one person at the end of the day, and that's inside of you. And you've got one conversation, and it's here. And I'm going to give you a tangible example. 5 years ago, when I was unhappy and I was searching, I often didn't say a lot of nice things to myself about myself.
Right.
The inner voice that we all have.
Yeah.
And the inner voice was like that roommate who for me, I needed to kick out because he or she wasn't paying the rent and was being kind of a difficult person. I'm going to be kind to my comments. But like, I don't want, looking back, I'm like, why did I have that roommate with me all my life? And that was
Yeah.
my roommate. And it was like, well, that roommate was trying to protect me. I understand what my ego was trying to do, i.e., my roommate, but they were doing it in a way that was really disempowering.
Hmm.
I can't remember, other than maybe one or two cases in the last year, when I've said something negative to myself. I can't even remember.
Hmm.
And this roommate is like aligned with me, and we're hanging out, we're having fun, and we're connecting together, and they're still there and they're still helping you out. But it's like the roommate you wished you'd had the entire time you were in college because it's the best person you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
And so what does it feel like? It feels like you've got a best friend who's yourself. It feels liberating. It feels that you are truly connected to yourself.
Right.
Because the problem is, and I'm going to go on a slight tangent here just for a second, is that I look back at where I was 5 years ago. The root cause of what I was dealing with 5 years ago was I was highly disconnected.
Hmm.
I was disconnected from myself. I didn't love myself. I wasn't, that roommate analogy, I wasn't supporting myself. I was disconnected from others. I was not showing up because I didn't want to be myself. So why would I want to have myself out there with others when I didn't even care about myself to the extent I needed to? And I was certainly disconnected from the world. So there was a big issue there too.
Right.
Now, looking back, is I'm now highly connected. I'm connected to myself, others in the world. Now, the problem is that there's so many things that keep us disconnected from ourselves in the world. There's so many things that want us disconnected from ourselves. Let's say big technology.
Yeah.
Do you think that Instagram wants you to be connected to somebody else, or they want you on their screen? Of course they want you on their screen. And
Yeah.
that's how they make the money, because of screen time. And that's how they make their advertising dollars. Do they want you disconnected from others? And in my mind, they actually even want you disconnected from yourself, because they can sell you more things. Or
Right.
you look at big food and enter a fast food company here. You know, they want you disconnected from nutrition, because fat, sugar, and salt keeps you addicted to their food. Like,
Right.
this is scientifically shown. There's a whole bunch of engineers that basically show if you have the right amount of salt, the right amount of fat, the right amount of sugar, you will constantly be hungry, you will want more food, and you'll create a sense of addiction to that food.
Yeah.
Or let me give you another example. Big agriculture. They want to feed the world, but they do it in a way that depletes the soil, that depletes nutrition, that sells you the cheapest thing at the most effective way in terms of like processing. But 5 years ago, I look back at what I was eating and look what I'm eating now. What I was eating before and what I'm eating now has changed dramatically and has just basically changed my biology because I'm now finally feeding myself stuff that actually helps me have nutritional value as opposed to the stuff I was getting before. And
Right.
so the reason I mention this is that there's so many things out there, so many powers and big companies that want to make money off you. And the more disconnected you are, the more money they make. And then I went through that process, and then I even went through and I went to the doctor. And what did they do? They pulled out the pharma piece, and they didn't ask me why I was sick. They asked me what my symptom was, and then they gave me medicine for my symptom. They didn't actually
Right.
give me medicine for the root cause of my issue. So they gave me sleeping pills as opposed to asking me, well, why aren't you sleeping well in the first place? What's wrong?
Yeah.
But they would give me the fix, and then they would give me, the ability to have these prescriptions given out over and over and over and over again. And so they would treat the symptom, not the root problem. And we all know that symptoms are messengers. Symptoms are messengers to say that something's wrong. But what they
Mhm.
do is they basically put the band-aid on the symptom and let the dam break when you're literally sitting there with your proverbial holding the water with the one finger as the water's coming out. No,
Yeah.
that's their approach to healthcare. And then the dam breaks and they're like, oh, this is exciting. Now I have a bigger issue and a bigger opportunity because he's really, really, really sick now. He might have diabetes because of all these issues. And I can now charge the insurance company $12,000 to cut off his leg.
Mm.
They're like, all the economic incentives are to either keep you disconnected, make you sick, keep you sick. Nobody's really interested, maybe except some insurance companies. Nobody's really interested, truly interested in these big categories of actually keeping you healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll make
Absolutely.
money off you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
For
For
sure.
sure.
I think
I think
there's an
there's an
interesting point that you made regarding like social media. You talked about Instagram, right? Um, I think the idea that social media is something that disconnects us from others, disconnects us from ourselves. Um, I think one of the biggest things that you see online is like social media is bad. Stop social media. And I think that we sometimes we operate in these black and white worlds where it's you're either doing it or you're not doing it. And everyone should not be doing it. And everyone is doing it. And so we all feel like we're failing because we're doing it when we're supposed to not be doing it. But it's not so simple in my mind, right? It just doesn't just Instagram, yes, has pros and cons. And is it true that these companies are trying to benefit off of you? Absolutely, right? That's how they function. Um, and I think that that is very, very much a fair point. But there's also the question of, okay, so if I'm on Instagram, am I now caught in this Instagram cycle and, that's the end of everything and I've completely failed? No, that's not really right, but I'm exaggerating, but that's not the point. I think that sometimes we get caught up in like we did something wrong or we are doing something wrong and therefore everything is wrong and therefore we should just keep doing it because we've already lost. It's very defeatist, but it's a thing. It's a real thing.
I agree. And well, what do you think? I mean, how do you approach that? Like, how do you approach your relationship with social media or Instagram vis-a-vis that paradigm?
Yeah, I mean, not well, to be honest, often. Like this definitely are moments where I'm like, man, it's 1:30 AM and I on Instagram and I need to go to bed. Like that's a thing. It's a thing and I've been there and it's happened and it happens. Like it happens, continually. Um, definitely I'm not sitting here saying like I've conquered social media because I
Yes,
haven't,
of
right?
course.
Um, I think one of the most interesting things is like the idea of connecting with others that you talked about. I think something that I found is so interesting is that when we actually connect with others, when we have people to connect with, you don't want to be on Instagram. That's been the most interesting thing for me, the biggest revelation for me, especially since coming home from school, from Exeter. I think it's just been such a profound difference because I'm around. Um, I had a conversation with one of my best friends about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He drove over to my house at about 8 p.m. after dinner, and he went to my basement, and we were gonna play NBA 2K or something, and we ended up talking about him, about me, about relationships, about life, about difference of opinion for 3.5 hours.
Wow.
11:30, his dad called him and said, "You need to come home," because he had to pick up his brother on the way home, and he had to leave. That's the only reason we stopped. We talked for 3.5 hours, and it didn't feel like any time had passed. I don't think either of us looked at our phone at any point until his dad called him, and it literally rang. It
Yes.
was such a beautiful experience because there was no point where I was like, "I want to do something," right? I want to be playing 2K, or I want to be looking at Instagram, or there was no feeling of that because I was so invested in the connection, in the conversation with someone. It didn't feel the need. Right? I didn't feel the desire to, let me go do something and, use my brain in this way, because I am using my brain for something else
Yeah.
that's more positive, and you can feel it. You feel better after that. I don't think anybody ever looks at Instagram and they're like, "Yes, I feel so much better now." It's hard, right? Maybe sometimes, depending on what you happen to see. Often, I feel tired, I feel like I didn't use my time well, I feel like I um, wasted my time. I feel like I'm wasting my life. I feel like, or even if just neutral, like, oh well, that was my 5 minute break between work, right? It's like that sort of mentality versus like I feel like I grew. I feel like I learned something, and I think that that's what you really get from connection, from people, from conversation is you feel better. You actually feel positive.
Well said. I think that's extremely articulate, and very well said. And I'm not pro Instagram. I'm not anti Instagram. I have an Instagram account. I learn a
I was
lot of
gonna say,
things.
come on.
People that I follow, I put information out there, but it's like anything else. Everything has to be done in moderation. Like,
Hmm.
in front of me, I've got my vitamins. And so, for example, like one of the things I take on a daily basis that's really important to me in terms of my vitamins, and I really suggest everybody thinks about it, is like this is my vitamin D, D3. But if you take your vitamin D, you have to take it with K2 to make sure that you're absorbing it. This is an aside. But I have because I know from my genetics that I don't absorb vitamin D properly. And vitamin D is one of the most important vitamins. It's not even just a vitamin, it's one of the most important hormones out there because it's important to all cellular processes.
Right,
However, if the vitamin D is too low, I'm going to struggle. But equally, if my vitamin D is too high, it's going to get toxic.
right,
The only way vitamin D works, it has to be within a bandwidth. And for me, I need more vitamin D because I have an absorption issue based on my genetics. But I have to maintain a element of vitamin D. If it gets out of the bandwidth, then there's a problem. If it gets too
right,
high, there's a problem. So a little bit of everything in terms of vitamin D or vitamin E or vitamin B12 or whatever it is I've got in front of me is really important. When you get out of the bandwidth, it becomes a problem. But
yeah,
the problem in society right now is that, there's this all or nothing, or here's the thing that's going to, fix you, or, whatever it is. And how the economic systems work is that there's no interest for modulation. Everything is like, I need to sell more and more and more and more and more. It's all about the next sale, and it's all about the next velocity because of our economic system. And so what is Instagram trying to do is, in my mind, is trying to keep you for the most time and attention possible. And I'm sure they're sitting there at headquarters in Menlo Park being like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Our time per user is up. We have
right,
more amount of time per user this month than we had last month. We have more attention. We have more people's retention and attention, and that
right,
they're going to, communicate that in their earnings call. The stock price is going to go up because they have more people spending more attention. And how do they keep people spending more attention on Instagram? Well, they hire a bunch of neuroscientists who understand the brains of young people to figure out, how do I actually program these materials in the interface to keep people addicted so that they're clicking and clicking and spending more time and more time. And
right,
so, I have a soon to be 11-year-old daughter who's generally addicted to YouTube. And like I've had to like literally wane her off YouTube, and she still
yeah,
can see it, but she
yeah,
has to see only a certain amount of certain amount of time, because I'm concerned
same thing.
about same amount of money. Exactly, well said. But the issue specifically is that the moderation is the key. And we tend to lose moderation in society because the economic incentives for these companies are so significant that they're programmed against us to allow
Mhm.
for that moderation. And parents, in this case, are too busy, often, not all the time, but often, to ensure that moderation takes place. And it's just hard out there because we're being bombarded not just with social media, but with fast food and with everything else coming at us,
Yeah.
that it becomes overwhelming. And so a lot of people just give up and they're like, whatever. I'm just going to
Yeah.
do my best and turn on Netflix and binge watch something so I can check out of my life and check out of my body. And
Yeah.
that's not good either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can we talk about instant gratification? Because I think it's something that is talked about often, right? It's this concept that we crave, or we're programmed to crave something quick, right? A hit of dopamine, a sugar high, or something like a rush, right? And I think often that one of the things that I've struggled with is that when I don't see results, when I don't see something happening, it's hard to keep going, right? It's hard to do something. So when you something like Instagram, where you can go watch an Instagram reel and it's a minute and a half, and you just feel like it's like, oh, that was so funny, right? It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. It's much harder to go, hey, best friend from childhood, can you drive 30 minutes to come see me? Can I drive 30 minutes to go see you so we can have a conversation? It takes more time,
Mhm.
right? And and then this, I mean, this we see this concept applied to so many things. Going to the gym is a big one that people talk about. Instant gratification, where it's like you go to the gym for a month and you don't see anything. It's like you give up. Well, that's not really how it works, right? You need to go continuously. How have you dealt with that idea? Because we all have it. We all want to see results, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of the work that you've done, and you talked about it. You went through modern medicine. You went on a journey to try to find things. You weren't finding things immediately, right? That's how it is. Um, but you continued on the journey. You persevered and you were able to get to the right places and the right people and do the work. But that takes time, right? That takes time. How do you deal with that desire to be like, I didn't get it, and so I'm giving up because I'm done?
It's a really interesting insight. The Let me explain to you the answer, how I see this, and then let me explain to you some basic science behind it.
Sure.
So I used to always think that the destination is the most important thing. And when my wife and I would go somewhere, we go on vacation, I'd be like, I just want to get there. I just want to get there. Or we're going
Yeah.
to go see, an ancient temple. And like, I would literally race past beautiful gardens and the monkeys and all this kind of stuff. Cause I just wanted to get the temple. I'm going to check the box. I went to the temple. Right.
Mhm.
And I was caring about the destination. And for me, I got the destination. And in my mind, I checked the box. I got the instant gratification or the dopamine hit of being like, I saw the temple. Look how great I am. I'm going to take a photo in front of Instagram. I conquered something new.
Yep.
And when I started looking at life through fulfillment, I really enjoyed getting to the temple, but sometimes I didn't get to the temple at all. Sometimes it took me a day and sometimes it took me an hour, but I actually equally enjoyed the journey along the way to get to the temple. I would stop and talk to somebody. I would have a chai on the side of the road. I would look at the garden. I would, take a photo or take a video for my daughters or the monkeys I met. It's about the small moments and about
Mm,
the destination. So instead
absolutely.
of being on the focused on the journey, excuse me, and focused on destination, let me try that again. I'm now focused on the journey.
Yeah.
And the journey is just the journey. And I am just journeying until I'm not journeying anymore. And at some point, hopefully many years from now, my journey is going to come to an end from a physical perspective, hopefully not from a spiritual perspective. But I'm just on this journey now. And I'm cool. Like, no matter how I get there, my destination is actually my journey. My
Right.
destination is actually my journey. My destination used to be my destination. Now my destination is my journey. That's a really esoteric point, but it's a really important one because my destination is my journey. My journey is
Yeah.
the most important thing.
Yeah.
And from a scientific perspective, it goes back to dopamine. I mean, we are literally a dopamine nation. There's a book called Dopamine Nation. If people haven't read this, they should. But basically, it's the same thing about like the check marks and I've done the next thing or I've accomplished the next, conquered the next mountain or I've got the new promotion or I've got the new car or I've got the new house or I've got the new job or I've got the new corner office. It's the same pattern over and over and over again.
Right.
And basically what happens is people think they'll get happy once they've achieved a certain status or a certain material possession or a certain title and
Right.
they get a dopamine rush for a short amount of time. But how your brain works as your dopamine goes up, there's a corresponding crash that if your dopamine goes up 20%, your dopamine has to go down 20% to get back to equilibrium. Your brain wants to regulate your dopamine levels. So if your
Right.
brain levels go up 20%, then invariably they go down 20%. And you're like, oh, I was feeling awesome. Now I feel like SHIT. And now I need to go back up to try to get more dopamine. And I'm going to try to get a higher hit. And then I go down more. And then I'm in this constant cycle of trying to hit my next hit of dopamine. And that's called addiction.
Yeah.
And we may not be addicted to stuff on the side of the road that is sold by a shady gentleman, with little stuff that he's selling for $20 in a plastic bag.
Yeah.
However, we're still addicted to things. We're addicted to the next title, the next car, the next house, the next this, the next that, the next girlfriend, the next conqueror mountain, the next whatever it is, the next Instagram reel, the next thing that's going to make me feel good for a short amount of time. And if we live our lives like that, there's a down regulation as well, because every time we get the up, we have a corresponding down, and then we try to meet and exceed the up, and then we have corresponding downs. And then we just end up having to numb ourselves because we're generally unhappy with our lives because we're always searching and never finding.
Right. Right. That's beautiful. That's awesome. I think it's such a difficult thing because um I think the concept is always something that's made sense to me, right? Where it's like the concept of how to appreciating the journey, of focusing on the little things, right? Some of my best memories that I have are like small things that are, not big things. I don't really remember the big things as well because it just in the grand scheme of life, they're not as important, right? I put that in quotes for everyone listening who's not watching the video. Um, I think it's such an interesting thing because the concept is there and it makes sense and it's logical and you can think through it and we can talk about it. But I feel like in my experience has always been these things are harder in practice,
Mhm.
right? It's harder to actually do it.
Mhm.
And that's been the struggle for me has been doing it
Mhm.
because I can get the logic, I can think about it, but it's waking up in the morning and saying, I'm going to focus on the little things
Mhm.
and have this great big revelation, which, as you spoke about earlier, doesn't happen. There is no great big revelation. The light shines down and the clouds part and the Red Sea opens up. And like, it is, you know what I mean? That's not a thing that really happens in everyday life, right? We don't have these big revelation moments. We have little moments and continued growth. And it's hard to see it. It's hard to see the little growth, right? The small improvements, because we want to see big improvements. I think that's a fair thing to want. And And as much as we can understand, at least for me, as I can understand that the little moments are important and they're more important and I really should focus on them, it's often for me been that like they happen and then they're gone. And then later is when I realize, man, that was such an awesome moment. You know what I mean? It's the nostalgia in a sense where it's like I'm thinking back and I'm like, man, that was great. That was one of the best days of my life. And that was 2 weeks ago. It's like, man, I wish I had known in the moment, you know? But I didn't know. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with knowing that sometimes you're not gonna know that you're in the good moments and that they're happening because you're in them and you really only know after?
So again, very fair observation. One is what shifted for me was I shifted my outlook. So if you tackle the moments, it's going to be very hard for you to create the behavior pattern changes that are necessary on a sustained basis.
Right.
Elevate the thought. Do you want to be happy or do you want to be fulfilled? Make a choice.
Mm,
I can assure you, I promise you, you want to be fulfilled. It's up to you, but make a choice.
yeah,
If I want to be happy, then I now know what to do. I need to go find all these things that are going to spike my dopamine to keep me going, keep me moving, keep me whatever.
right.
And there's a plan in place. And let me tell you, the world's going to be extremely happy that you're seeking happiness because they're going to sell you a lot of stuff on the way.
Yeah,
Do you want to be fulfilled? Is I'm now going to look at the life and my lens differently, and I'm going to make choices differently. One of my remarkable teachers in my life many years ago, who subsequently passed away, wrote this famous book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. His name was Stephen Covey.
mm,
And your older listeners will understand what I'm talking about. You probably never may have heard of him, maybe you have, but he's somebody who helped a lot of people many years ago.
mm,
And he had these 7 habits of highly effective people. And one of the habits is to begin with the end in mind. To begin with the end in mind. What are you trying to do? What is your ultimate accomplishment? What is your goal? And
right.
you should have a goal. And if you work backwards from that goal, then all your decisions emulate or resonate from that goal is probably the more appropriate word, to make sure that we're moving forward based on what you're trying to accomplish. So what do I want? I want a life through happiness, connection, love, family, health. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And all my decisions now come from that because I know what I want. So when it comes to these small little things, I link them automatically back into my brain. Oh, did that give me connection? Did that give me love? Did that give me health? Did that give me family moments? Because I know what I want, and then everything now links back. And I've literally probably reprogrammed my brain using neuroplasticity to make sure I create the correlates to make sure that everything links back to my brain about what I want to accomplish.
Right.
However, it takes 3 weeks on average to create new habits. It takes 3 weeks on average to create new habits. So make sure that you're practicing this for a minimum of 3 weeks to then think and you're let your body and your nervous system re-regulate itself to create the habitual framework to create the new habit. What's the best way of doing that? Things like mindfulness, meditation, and gratitude on a daily basis. Spend 20 minutes when you wake up, ideally 20 minutes when you wake up because your brain is in a different state in terms of brain waves, and it
Hmm.
can bring more information into your subconscious in a more effective way. And just go through what you're grateful for. Go through what you're connected to. Go through what fulfills you on a daily basis and recenter yourself down to those things on a daily basis. I do it every morning. I don't miss it. And then that way, those little moments get programmed into me and I'm able to put them in the right filing cabinet because I have the filing cabinet doors open.
Right. Absolutely. That's awesome. Every morning, huh? I
Does
gotta
that
start doing
feel?
it. I gotta put it on my to-do list. Start doing this thing.
Well, do it for
Start
three.
thinking about it.
Do it for 3 weeks. See how you feel, and then if it goes well, then you're gonna want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things. It's like it's hard to get going. It's hard to not eat crappy food every day, but after 3 weeks of eating healthy food, you're never gonna want to eat crappy food again.
Mm.
Because you're like, I used to feel like crap, and now I don't feel like crap anymore. I don't want to go back to that space anymore.
Yeah.
Because
It's
now I
like
know how
getting
I
to the
feel.
3 weeks.
Yeah,
But yeah, absolutely.
yeah. But it takes 3 weeks.
Absolutely. I wanna shift gears a little bit. You most recent book is called What Is My Legacy? You wrote it alongside, Dr. Martin Luther King III, Andrea Waters King, and your brother Craig. You have a podcast hosted with those same 3 people called the My Legacy Podcast. The company that you direct lead along with Craig is called Legacy Plus. Clearly, there's a lot of creativity in naming here. What what does legacy mean to you? What is legacy? What is your legacy? What is legacy as a concept?
So legacy in our mind is what you do every single day. We've turned legacy on its head in terms of what people think legacy is that what happens when you're like 80 years old and when you die. That's not what
Yeah.
legacy is. Legacy isn't the name on a building. Legacy isn't the name on a park bench. Legacy isn't, you endowing a scholarship or, you know, whatever that might be. In
Mhm.
our mind, legacy is something called a living legacy, and it's what you do every single day and how you live your life on a daily basis. So we've taken the concept of legacy and added the word living in front of legacy. And instead of legacy happening when you die, when you add the word living in front of it, the entire meaning of the term changes.
Right.
And therefore, it's how you live your life on a daily basis.
Got it. What So in your mind, what is your legacy? Like, what do you imagine your legacy to be? Is that something you feel like you are living your legacy all the time? Is it sometimes? Is that something that, and like fulfillment where it's like a continuous thing? Is it like happiness where it kind of comes and goes? What is it like? What does the concept of legacy mean? Because it's a new concept. I don't really know what that, I haven't conceptualized it, I suppose.
Well, I invite you to do it. I invite you to read the book. It tells you
Absolutely.
and maps out how to specifically do this. That being said, the way I do it was my legacy is I want to help heal the world. That's my legacy. I don't want to heal the world by myself. I want to help heal the world. So I'm going to use my language very carefully. And I want to do that every single day. And I do that through how I show up, who I interact with, having conversations like these. I want to be a good dad, and I want to help heal, the intergenerational trauma that's been passed on from epigenetically, which is this whole separate conversation. I want to just be a person that helps make the world a better place than it was when I first came into the world. That's it.
Absolutely. you once told me to live my legacy every day. An Instagram comment after I commented on a post that you made. What does that mean? How do I know what my legacy is, like, and what I want it to be? Like, how do I think about legacy? Like, okay, I want to be a good person, right? Is that a legacy, idea? As you said, you want to heal the world, help heal the world, right?
Yeah.
How do I know what I want my legacy to be at 17 years old? Am I supposed to know? Like, does everybody know that already?
Yeah. Well, I know we're at time, so here's my final answer to bring us together to answer this question. The question is, in my mind, your legacy is influenced by what your purpose is. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this question. And to me, your purpose in life is to find your purpose. Your purpose in life is to find your purpose. And that
Mm,
purpose can evolve and change as you get older. But having a purpose is absolutely critical because by doing so, that means that you are not somebody who is focused on yourself solely. You're focused on something larger than yourself. So my purpose is found through what fulfills me. And what fulfills me, again, is love, connection, family, and health.
right.
And by focusing on what fulfills you, by focusing on what fulfills you, is how your purpose reveals itself.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much for this. I have one final question that I end every episode with,
Yes.
as it's the Live Words podcast. What are some words you choose to live by and why?
Love, connection, family, health, because that's what fulfills me. That what creates my legacy. That what gives me purpose. And that's what helps me heal the world.
Thank you so much, Mark. This was awesome.
Appreciate it very much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.